Hello everybody. Looks like we're all up and running. I think so anyway. Looks like the sound is good, the picture is good. Welcome to another fantastic Foxton Friday paint along. So today we have I think a very beautiful subject. These are Old Holland. No, they're not. That's a paint maker. Wollerton Old Hall. David Austin Roses, that's right. Wollerton Old Hall. And I particularly like them because of their form. So the challenge today, I'm going to be particularly focusing on simplifying complex forms. Roses, flowers in general, very complicated subject. And the best way to approach them is to ignore the petals. Okay, that's going to be the mantra for today. Ignore the petals until we get the painting to a point where we can see light and depth and form, and the flowers are starting to appear. So we do all of the color, we do all of the values, we do all of the edge handling of the main forms, and at that point hopefully they'll look like delicate little cream bowls. And when we get to the point where we've got some delicate little cream bowls, we'll start putting some petals on, and we'll probably find we won't need too many petals. Okay, probably. Let's have a quick look at the color. We'll do our usual quick run through the reference photo on Chroma Magic. The wonderful Chroma Magic app. Let's see if I can just bring it up. Here we go. So I've deliberately shot this so that there is very distinct value differences. You know, we've got a little bit of lighter value here. We've got these beautiful roses just starting to open, 3 of them and a few petals, which actually did fall off this one on the left. So back here, obviously, we're black, right? Here, might be a little bit darker than you think. That's only a middle value. It's about a value 5, okay? The silver, quite low value there. And actually, the highlight of the silver is the lightest part of the subject, but we don't have to paint it that light, but we'll see. So I bet this leaf is darker than you think. That's pretty dark. Nice dark, high chroma, yellow, green. Same back here. But the story is all about the flowers, right? So what have we got here? On the outside of the flower, we've got a color something like this. A pinkish orange, you could say. This is the shadow side, right? So remember what value we are on the shadow side. Not deep shadow in there, but like imagine we're just thinking of this as a bowl with an opening at the front here. I know it's a bit more complicated than that, but we'll look at it that way to start with. So the shadow side of the flower is like this. The light side, the lightest side is like this. Value 9, okay? And then we have this beautiful color in the middle. Look at that. That might be a little bit higher chroma than you expect, right? And the other flowers are pretty much the same. This one actually gets quite dark. Look at that in the shadow side. Darker than you would think. So the key, to really making this one work is going to be, it's the same as it always is, to be fair, but it's going to be the getting the values right. I think my sound might be a little bit high today. Getting the values right. Getting the chroma right, because the outside of the flower is very low chroma. And then getting that gorgeous high chroma on the inside. Oh, you know what? I've just realized I forgot to put my, I forgot to get my panel out. Shows how organized I am today. What did we say we were working on today? 8 by 10. So this is actually just recorded a live stream on this. Not a live stream, sorry. A teaching session on this painting. Can't believe I forgot to put a fresh panel out. Got everything else set up. Obviously, we're not painting this today. Fresh panel. Let's get this out of the way. That was from second subject of the currently but almost finished live workshop, mastering the magic mostly about painting in layers, but painting complex things and simplifying them, which funnily enough is pretty much the theme for today. So look, this is how I stick my panels on my board, if anyone's wondering. Blue tack. Most wonderful stuff. Oh, it's this way around, isn't it? Stick that up there. Maybe move my coffee so I don't put any brushes in it. How is everybody today? It's incredibly warm here in the Cotswolds. Well, technically I'm just outside the Cotswolds now. I still call it the Cotswolds, but it's not really, because we moved out to even further out to the countryside. Isa says, can I use filberts as well? For your brushes? Absolutely, yeah. Flat synthetics are really nice, but you can use filberts. Hello, Astrid. From Florida, I bet it's warmer there than it is here, mind you. Barbara's, you do your favourite flowers. Very cool. Wollerton Old Hall. Lots of people like the subject today. Thank you, Marcia. We're going to get I'll catch up with the comments as we're going along. First things first, linseed oil, little bit of solvent, makeup sponge. Let's get this panel covered. Now because we have such extremes of value, I'm not going to do a wipeout today, and I'm not really going to draw it out either. I'm going to try and get things in roughly the right place, but I'm just going to go straight in with the deep, dark background, leaving hopefully gaps of about the right size and in about the right position on the panel for the roses. And then we'll just take it from there. That's basically my plan at the moment. As you can see, I've been properly caught on the hop today. I haven't even got all my paints out yet. So, materials list, for anyone who's on my email list, you would have had this. Let me just pop this link in the chat, because if anybody is watching this and they want to make sure they get notifications of these sessions before they're live, you can join the email list. And even better, if you join the school, you get the reference photo too. And I have been thinking about trying to put together, you get the materials list. I've been thinking about maybe putting together mixing videos for the Friday lives. I mean, it's a lot of extra work, but it might be really useful. That would be for people who are in the school, of course, though. Hello, Alan. Good to see you. Alan in Greenwich. I bet it is hot in London, yeah. Buonasera, Mara. Good to see you. Who's painting along today? Let me know in the chat if you're painting along. What else do I need? I need some raw umber. Because we're going to want to drop the chroma of some fairly orangish colours. Where I've laid these out, I haven't really left enough room for my raw umber. Let's move them around a little bit. Plan to paint fairly freely today, like more so than I would if I was teaching, but hopefully in a way that will make sense and that will, help to demonstrate how I approach and how I teach approaching complex subjects like this. We've got phone here with the picture up here, so I can check some colors as I go if I want to. Always looks a little bit different on the phone, but in fact gives me pretty much the same colors. Look at that. That's pretty intense. Actually, I think that my easel camera is overexposed, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit. Oh, wrong way. Yeah. Hello, Betty. You're very welcome. Tasha likes them too. Lots of people like the flowers. It's rose season basically here. All my roses are starting to come out. I'm so happy. Probably in terms of flowers, I don't know. It's between these and daisies. My favourite flowers to paint. Happy Friday, Kathy. Hello, Michelle. Good to see you. All right. Let's start making a mess. Let's just start making a mess. So all of this is going to be, I mean, it's black. I'm going to use black. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to use black. So let me try and rough out first where I think the flowers are going to sit, just so I've got some kind of a reference of it. This is a little Cornelison's hog. Just want some kind of a reference mark so I can see, like if that was. See this, it's all about this one really. I've also cropped it fairly close, so there's not an awful lot of room, like between all of these flowers and the, you know, the outside of the panel. So it actually goes right up to there, really. But the bowl shape, the bit that I'm interested in, is like kind of like this. Probably cut about here. My bowl. And then we have a couple of petals on the outside, which we'll deal with later. So here's the. I'm going to draw it like it's a bowl. There's the opening of the bowl. And we've got another flower over here. Comes down to probably about there. Because I'm going to go straight in with the black in the background. I'm going to try something today, actually. I'm going to try painting the background like really, really simply. Because it's so strong anyway. Oops. And this is a bowl. Because it's so strong anyway. Background of this kind of deep black. I'm tempted to make it even stronger and see how it comes out. Is really small, this one. But it too is a little bowl. Seriously, think of them as bowls, like right from the start. Let's make a quick judgment of where the bottom of the. It's actually a little silver jug. Going to come up there, bottom of it, I should think, something like that, and it comes up, joins that flower. That's about where the jug is. We've got all leaves over here. Strong cast shadow off this jug. A few petals there that interrupt the shadow. Cast shadow goes over there, back here. There's another cast shadow. So not really too much drawn out to start with, just a basic idea of where everything is. I'll show you the little jug. Where's the little jug? A favourite subject that has been painted many times. You can only see a little bit of it at the moment, though, of course. Let's be bold. Big brush. This is a Rosemary's Ivory flat. Now I got a few of these. I got 3 of them, and I didn't like them at first. I'll be honest. I was like, oh no, not really too keen on that brush. I'm going to get a little bit of my oil on it, kind of get it started, and then wipe that off. Just because they were so stiff, but as time has gone on, I've realized that there are things that I like them for, and blocking in backgrounds really quickly is one of them. Holly, it's your second one you're doing with me. Very cool. So let's be strong, okay? Black, big brush. Actually, my palette is just off the screen. Let's try and move it up a little bit so you can see it all. No point messing about, right? So I'm gonna paint the leaves into this, the leaves that we can see, because they are actually still very dark. Let's just like leave this strong and simple. Few leaves around there. We'll just fudge that bit for now. Not really too bothered about absolute perfection, but I would like, if I can, to keep some of these kind of very strong, bold strokes. So this is just black. Very, very rarely paint with just black. I was going to mix something in it to warm it up, but I thought, you know what? Let's just go in there with black. Make it really strong, like outrageously strong, and see how it comes out. Perhaps it'll be disastrous, or perhaps it'll look lovely. Perhaps this will be a one-session painting, perhaps it'll be a two-session painting. No idea yet. Let's get a little bit of raw umber in now. Raw umber and black for this cast shadow. I'm gonna paint this all like more extreme than I normally would. And this was like about a value 5, wasn't it, at the front? So let's mix up a value for that. Put that brush away now. It's done its job. Value 5. Let's just go. I'm going to keep the chroma like in the front there, lower than it actually is in reality. That cloth at the front, because obviously you don't need to follow this, because I have a feeling that it will help the flowers stand out more. But I do want to get down to about a value 5 with it, because that will help the flowers stand out as the lightest part of the composition, which they are at the moment. I think I've got another one of these. I've got another one that big, not that big. Not quite that big. This is another ivory. Rosemary's ivory. I do like these brushes. It took me a long time to kind of find my way with them, but I'm quite keen on them now. We're just banging it in, pretty much. We've got a few petals around here. We can think about adding those. And I wonder if it might be a nice idea to actually start to rough in. I'm not actually bothered about painting the little jug as a jug. Nice shadow on the jug there, cast by that rose. I just want it to look just be abstract shape at the moment, and then I'll think about Be making it look a little bit more like a jug when we get to that point. At the moment, I'm just putting basically value patches. That's all I'm doing really at the moment. Highlight. So I just wanted to get all of that roughed in as quickly as possible so that we can get to the interesting bit, which is starting to play with the roses. Maybe this is too dark. Maybe we wipe it back a bit. Shouldn't really do it because it's too difficult to tell for sure, but let's see. Hello, David. Good to see you. Hello, Ruth. Hi, Vicky. Thank you, Sally. Yeah. I'm wearing a very special t-shirt today. Extra points for anyone who can tell me what it supports. David says, definitely want to do later at a slower pace for me. Yeah, good point. But also, what might be fun to try, though, is to get, you know, I mean, so far all the paints that I put in here are pretty cheap. It's to get maybe a smaller panel and just play a little bit and see, you know, have a little play on a small panel and just try and block it in really strongly and really simply, you know, right at the beginning, and just to sort of, just to see what happens, like, and then do a more careful version, you know, that can often be a nice way to approach things. So I'm actually starting to think about the shapes of the shadows now, a little bit more. Something dark here. My reference photo is too small for me to see what that is. I suspect it's a shadowed leaf, and I'll have to go back into it at some point. Oh no! Don't be calling me. I'm getting all these spam calls on my phone at the moment. I'm going to have to start. Basically, everyone that knows me and has my phone number knows I never answer my phone, so they never call me. I'm obviously going to have to do something about that. I wonder if my palette camera is a bit overexposed still. Not sure. All right, for anyone who's painting along, I realised that was breathlessly quick. But also it's because I'm not too bothered about the accuracy, like not really close accuracy. As long as we're somewhere near, I'm happy. Oh, Kelly, you got Wollerton Old Hall as well. They're gorgeous, aren't they? So let's think about the kind of colours that we've got. Let's start with the big one, right? Because it's the most interesting rose. When I bring it up on my phone, it looks a lot more chromatic than it actually is. Probably because of the colour that it is, and that, you know, it's just a little bit too strong. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix up some colours, and I'm going to paint a bowl here. Just a bowl, right? Rough out this shape. So, value scale at the ready. What kind of colour do I want on the shadow side of my bowl? Well, it's going to be about a value 5 to start with. It's got some chroma, but not a huge amount. I'm going to start with white. And I'm going to mix transparent red oxide, a little bit of transparent red oxide, and some cad yellow, so it goes a kind of yellowy orange. I want to bring it down probably to about a value 5. I've just realized why I'm looking at my palette camera, sorry, and I'm thinking it's overexposed, and it's because I've just I've just realised why. It's because I forgot to set my adaptive brightness on my phone display and match it to my value scale. That's why it looks so light. Match the value to the value scale. There we go. Back to Chroma Magic. Now everything should look a little bit more normal. So this is actually the color that I'm after there, something like that. So this is going to be obviously too chromatic. It's still light, so we haven't got as low in value as we need. So I'll bring some raw umber in it, which will do two things. It will bring the value down, and it will drop the chroma too. I just want to paint this as like a generic kind of a, that's about a 5. A little bit light still, maybe. Generic shadow side of the bowl. I'm going to paint this rose mostly with another Rosemary's brush. This is Angled Eclipse. I first heard about these from Kathleen Speranza, incredibly wonderful flower painter. And she mentioned what she used for painting roses. In fact, she's mostly a rose painter. Donna says, so far I think I can handle this. I even have that Rosemary's brush. You can absolutely handle it. You can absolutely have a go. No. PJ, painting along, fantastic. A.K. Stevenson says, I love your image, but I couldn't download the reference photo. If you're in the school or if you're in the community, my online community, i.e. if you've learned with me, then bought a course, or if you're in the school, then you should, if you click on or tap on, if you're on a device like a phone or a tablet, if you tap on the reference photo, you should see a download icon on the top right, and you can download it there. Free watermelon, right? Just happens to be the colours of the Palestinian flag. Shadow side. The bowl. So I'm imagining a bowl, the light is coming down from the right-hand side, okay? It's lighter and it gets a little bit more chromatic here because we're kind of, we've got light traveling through it, but I want to try and see it just as a bowl for now, and then try and make some edits where I feel it's going to need it. Light is coming from the right. We're getting a little bit lighter as we move around the bowl, so I'll bring a little bit of white in, because also as we move around from the shadow into the light, the chroma drops too. Wow, it's so warm here. My white is starting to set up already. That's a bit scary. But for the light side of the bowl, we are going to be like quite high value. Go value 8. So choose something like around here. But we want a fair amount of chroma, probably a little bit more chroma than I've got there. No, I'm not quite light enough and not enough chroma. So if I want to add a little bit of chroma to this, I would put in a little bit more transparent red oxide and a little bit more cad yellow. Give me a nice pinkish orange without adding any raw umber, so it doesn't drop the chroma at all. The chroma is lower than the shadow, but it still does have some. That's pretty nice. Get a fresh brush for the light side. Just really simply, like if this was a bowl, you can imagine it as like a sphere. Got some black in it. You can imagine it as a sphere with like the end chopped off and then a hole gouged out in the middle. I'll mix between these. Around the bottom, we're still fairly dark here. No petals, not painting any petals. Yet. And in the middle, remember, it's like really chromatic in the middle. Something like this. I'm not even sure I can get that with the paints I've got. Let's try just transparent red oxide with cad yellow. Wants to be like about a value 6. This is the highest chroma orange I'm going to be able to get with what I've got. I may need to add another color. If I wanted to add a color to make this orange more chromatic at a higher value, here's a little test. Pop in the chat what you think I could add. Which color? What one color would you add to this palette to allow you to make brighter oranges, more intense oranges? There's a bunch of different colors, obviously, that you could add. See, it doesn't have the chroma, it just doesn't have the chroma. I need more chroma. And I add more yellow to get it to the right value. About value 6. And the value is all right. I don't have the chroma. It's not high enough chroma. Right? Can you see that? I want more chroma. What do you think? What should I add to the palette? Permanent orange. Oh yeah, that would definitely get you there. Lemon yellow, probably not, because I've already got cad yellow and that is an orange yellow already. Pyro, Sally says. Oh yeah, that's bringing out the big guns. That would do it, yeah, that would do it, yeah. Vermilion would do it, naphthol red would do it, yeah. All of these would do it. All of these would do it. Permanent yellow, probably not, because I already have a cad yellow, which is a strong, strong high chroma yellow. Indian yellow, definitely not, because it's a lower chroma. Cad red might well do it, yeah. Yeah, cad red might do it. Permanent orange would do it. What should we use? I would choose, personally, quinacridone rose, my favourite colour, for reds and making oranges. But you know what? Let's put the permanent orange out. It's a bit overkill, to be fair. It's so powerful. But in terms of its properties as paint, it's transparent, so it's not too difficult from quinacridone rose, really, not too different from that. So what about if I mix permanent orange and cad yellow? Ooh. Too much chroma. Or is it too much? Let's have a look and see. Actually, it's not. I'm not sure it is too much chroma. Probably because I've got a little bit of TRO mixed in there, because I was sloppy the way I mixed it, right? Let's use a colour, something like that. Let's use that colour. I want another brush for the inside, different brush. What have we got? Have we got another angled eclipse? Not handy. We'll use a smaller Rosemary's Ivory Flat. So this is going to look like a bit weird to begin with, because the inside of a bowl actually wouldn't be that bright, but we're going to cut into it. Just a bowl with an orange middle. Imagine a bowl that someone had painted orange in the middle. Okay, we'll have some fun with this in a minute. Let's put these other petals on. I'm going to need some darker colour for these other petals, because they do actually go a little bit lower. A bit of transparent red oxide, a little bit of raw umber. Now we're putting the extra little petals around the outside. But really simply, though, you know, because the point of what I'm trying to do today is to simplify this form as drastically as possible. I'm going overboard. You know, basically just to prove a point. If you can, and also hopefully to encourage you to try simplifying form this much. Because I'm pretty sure that mostly you would look at something like this and you would think, ooh, I'm itching to paint those petals. Those petals are so beautiful. I just want to get in there and be painting petals. And at the beginning, I think it would be a mistake because the trick with flowers is to get the basic form first. So even though there's no petals been painted on this flower yet, it's beginning to appear. Have I got my shadow and light colored brushes mixed up? Probably. I'm always doing that. So this petal here is a little bit lighter. Why? Because it's got light falling on it. Shadow. It's like, how little can I paint? How economical can I be and have this still feel like the form is starting to appear? A lot of it as well, like painting very simply like this, a lot of it comes down to how confident you can be with the brush. Like I want to try and get this edge of this petal, it gets a little bit lighter before it goes into the shadow. So what I'm trying to do is on my brush, I'm trying to get it lighter on this side and darker on that side. And then when I flip it over, if I can do this with one stroke, I will. Still needs a little bit more shadow on the inside. So if you can kind of, I call this, I hope it doesn't sound pretentious, but I call this letting the brush speak. Like using the marks of the brush to describe the form as much as you possibly can. Gets really into shadow here and softens, disappears into the shadow. Nice. You've probably got maybe a little bit too much chroma here and need a bit more shadow. So this is like shadow cast by the bowl onto the petals around the outside. That one gets a little bit lighter on the outside, so I'm going to get some lighter color on this side of the brush this time and see if I can just drag it around in a single stroke. Make a petal. I think I should be able to come up with a practice exercise for making strokes like this. Would that be useful? Like a way to, I'm always saying, like in critique sessions, I'm always recommending that people practice things away from a painting. So you're not actually trying to make a painting. You're not having to think about all the things that you normally have to think about when you're trying to make something look real. Or to make a flower look beautiful, or so you just practice the strokes on their own. I think she's starting to come. I mean, it's so simply painted, but if you squint down, there's some kind of appearance of that rose starting to come. Nancy says, okay, so you would move towards red or orange, no yellow. Quinacridone rose. Yeah, quinacridone rose I would have chosen. But it doesn't matter, anything that gets you the chroma. And that's because I've already got cad yellow. Well, I've run out, so I'll put some more out. But I've already got cad yellow. I've already got the highest chroma yellow that I can get in an orange yellow on the palette. So more yellows aren't going to make the chroma any higher. The only thing that would make the chroma higher now would be, a stronger red or an orange. Alfie's mum. Is it Lisa? Is it Lisa, your name? I'm sorry, I've forgotten again. It looks like a fried egg. Yeah. Well, you know, fried eggs have a lot in common with the form of a rose. So I'm gonna, rather than, I don't know, what should I do next? While I've got the colours out, let's quickly rough in the other flowers as little bowls as well. So this one here, on the shadow side, use the right brush. This is the shadow brush. So I like to have like a shadow brush and a light brush just because it helps me think really clearly in terms of light and shadow. So this is the shadow side of the bowl, this little bowl here. It's a little bit lighter. And then the light side of the bowl. Just put my shadow brush in my white, which was pretty daft. God, this lead white is starting to set up already. Scary. A bit of chroma into my light colour. It is really warm today, though. I'm going to have to put a little bit of oil out because I've run out of oil in my little jar now. Just to keep my white moving, I'm going to need a little bit extra oil, I think. So I think it's a good way to look at painting. Like, instead of thinking, oh, look at all that complexity, I'm going to have to paint all of that detail to make this flower work. To look at it a little bit differently and say, well, how little can I paint to make this flower work? What's the minimum that I can paint to get a feeling of that form actually being there and existing in the space? This one is floating at the moment because it has no cast shadow. But I didn't realize that until I started painting the colors in. We're moving towards the shadow so it gets a little bit darker, gradually coming out to the light. Yeah, I can't get that. I thought I'd try and see if I could paint like a light shape there of an extra pet. Here's the bowl. So I thought I'd paint a light shape there into the black, but I can't. It won't take. So I'll have to wipe the black off and then put it in. So hopefully that will take now a bit better. So these are kind of the smaller forms. My bowl is a little bit dark in the shadow side, so let's bring that up. There we go, basically two bowls. I'm going to have to put this cast shadow in, or this, here. That's not going to work as a bowl there. Nope, darker. And then against the silver jug, gets really, really dark. You see, it's coming bit by bit. We're just making the jigsaw of the patterns of light and shadow. here. Soft. What about this bowl? This has a little bit more chroma in the shadow. Transparent red oxide will put some permanent orange in it and then bring the yellow in, a little bit of yellow. We want to be like about a value 3. That should be about right. That's too chromatic, what I've got there, though. Let's have a lower chroma version with raw umber in it as well. Shadow side of the bowl. Yes, there's a lot of complexity, but let's just think about it as a bowl. For now. And then we'll start adding petals. So this is the side of the bowl. Here it's pointing away from the light, so it's going a little bit darker as it points away from the light. And then we get gradually lighter as we move around to the actual light side. Here. But it's a bowl, you know, I'm conceiving of this form, like I'm thinking of it as a bowl. No petals. Just making, I'm trying to make interesting brush strokes at the same time that, you know, will be susceptible to being converted into petal shapes, let's say, later on. Around here we've got, if this was just a bowl, it would be going into shadow again here because I'm moving away from the light. Getting a bit darker there. Another bowl. Let's put this other little outside petal on too, though. I'm not even being too careful about, you know, if I've got like little skips around what I'm painting now, where you can see the division between the flower and the background. We can always sort that out. All white in there. There is actually a light petal here. Thankfully, I've left just enough to get a hard edge there. Not quite the right shape, but never mind. We can sort it. So the inside of my bowl is way too dark. Now I can see that really clearly now, and probably a little bit too high chroma, so let's bring up. Drop the chroma, bring up the value. The inside of that bowl, because it's not really sitting in the right place. That's looking better now. We've got a couple of petals over on the side. They're kind of a little bit more yellow, those petals. So, you know, the fallen, oh, picked up some cad yellow that I didn't want. I think I'm going to have a look at those petals over on the side here and rough those in, because it's the last bit really of the painting that doesn't have anything in it yet. And it's hard to judge everything until you've got everything filled in. Laura says, we painted the jug before. I think it's a creamer. We absolutely have. We painted it on a free little 2-day course that I did a while back with a red patterned cloth that it was sitting on and was reflected in it. Painted it a few times, done with some pansies in it last year. I'm kind of liking where this is going at the moment. It's very simple, very uncomplicated, and I'm trying to keep like the strength of the composition. What's this white like? Hopefully this is a bit more, yeah, a bit gooier. Even that's pretty. I've only just put it out and it feels like it's starting to set up already. So I'm going to put a little bit of green gold and some raw umber in here because I want a lower chroma, slightly more yellow white with the petals over off on that side. So mix enough paint, pick it up with my light brush, and let's see if we can just kind of make a mark, just the light side. So over here, I probably better wipe it out first because I don't have enough. Don't think. This won't take if I try and paint it into the black. Pick up plenty of paint. The shadow side of that is still quite light. It's still like about value 6. Has less chroma, so raw umber. I'm just trying to put them in just as shapes at the moment. Not bothering really too much about whether it actually looks like a petal or not. Gonna need a cast shadow, but not yet. Got another slightly darker one, but you can still see it behind that. So I'm just checking these values as I go, making sure that I get them in at about the right value, you know. This one goes right off the edge. I need a couple of cast shadows around those. Raw umber. How little can I paint? Do I really need to paint these like as petals, or can I just kind of suggest them? So this is too yellow now. It's got too much chroma. I want that to be a little bit closer to neutral. So I'm going to mix up some white with some black. What's the value that I've got there? I think the value I've got is maybe slightly lighter. Yeah, it's like about a value 6, 6.5. I think just black and white is going to be too stark, so I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber in it as well. It's about value 6. Actually, I like that. It kind of takes it somewhere else a little bit. bit more lighter value on the right hand side here. Just trying to make a strong design, really, more than anything else at the moment. And that brings out, you know, like if you were here for the last Friday painting when I was doing the nasturtiums and deliberately painted the bowl like a lot starker than it actually was and a lot more even. Handle these edges, soft brush. So this is a nice flat synthetic. What is this? It's a Callier angle shader that I got from Jackson's. I don't even know what it is. I've never heard of that make before, actually. So the thing that defines cast shadows is their soft edges. So I'm just trying to make sure that these feel like, I'm trying to hit like a middle ground between, you know, a strong feeling of light and shadow and form, and basically just abstract kind of application of paint. Oof, a lot happened quite quickly there. Let's have a little breather and catch up with the comments and think about what's going to happen next. How long have we been going? Ooh, about an hour already. I'm enjoying myself today, so the time's going really fast. So some parts of it are starting to look like the reference photo. While I'm painting, the whole time I'm squinting, so that I can get an impression of, you know, the overall feeling of the light and shadow patterns. Tanya says, I don't think I can get lead white in Canada. What would be the closest? Well, you can get, I don't know, maybe someone can help with that. Someone was saying the other day on the stream that Williamsburg lead white alternative is quite ropey. So that could be a possibility. Actually, let's get some chroma in the shadows. Transparent red oxide and green gold. I want a bit of chroma here, just so it really feels like it's coming out of the shadow and into the light. Like in the simplest possible way that I can paint it in there. Ooh, I like that. That's just transparent red oxide and green gold. I haven't even bothered mixing them together properly. Bit here needs to be darker though. And maybe I can use it to sculpt out shape a little. So this is like extremely simplified to the point where it's almost abstract. But it's a little bit like drawing things upside down. It's a good way to keep yourself from getting lost in petals and trying to paint a rose and ending up with something that doesn't look right because you were so focused on the petals that the colours all came out wrong. Jan says, how do you keep the black from smearing into the light? It has been a bit of a, it's been a bit of a challenge. So like here, when I put the light on, I made sure I put the paint on really thick and I tried to paint right just up to the edge. Here, I've let the shadow smear into the dark. I don't mind there if it smears into the background. So it's mostly a case of just getting a lot of paint on the brush and doing it with as few strokes as possible. I'm going to work into this rose in a minute and try and make a rose out of this fried egg. So it's mostly minimum number of strokes and good thick paint in the lights And also leaving room for it, leaving room for the lights. Louise says, yes, you can get lead white in Canada. Cool. If you can get lead white and you don't mind working with it, just get lead white. It's just so much better. I kid you not. You won't have problems with your mixes going too cool in high values, which you do get a lot with titanium white. It flows really nicely on a panel like this. A panel with lead white on it is really beautiful. Chris says, why do you use lead white and not titanium? I think I probably just answered that question. The handling properties, it's slightly transparent, so you can put a little bit of it in the shadows without it going too opaque. It's easier to control than titanium, and it is, I like mostly the handling quality, but I like the fact that, when I'm going up the value range with lead white, I can keep the chroma more easily. Because titanium white is a blue white, so if you're in oranges and yellows and you add titanium to it, it will tend to go really quickly. It will go very low chroma. Yes, you can get round it, but lead white is just nicer. Lead white is just nicer. What a rubbish answer that was. I'm sorry. You have to try it, I think. Nastaran, welcome. Don't worry being late. Don't worry about being late. No, it's fine, don't worry. You are most welcome. Robin says, hi Paul, isn't there a little bit of pink or purple in the cast shadow of the littlest rose and the cloth? Pink or purple? Chroma Magic says it's brown. If you mean this bit here, Chroma Magic says it's brown. Actually, I want to make that, I've been playing with this too much and I've lost the form with the cast shadow there. Let's make it a bit clearer. I mean, you could, by all means, you could put some in if you wanted to. You certainly could do that. As long as you kept the value about right and the chroma about right, it would work fine. But there isn't actually any there. No, it's brown. It may look like that. Part of the inspiration for me painting so loosely today, and in such an abstract way, is we just did the first session of the final subject of the live workshop I'm teaching at the moment. And this is going to be a 3-session painting that we're doing. And a lot of people were disappointed with how it was a big old confit pot, beautiful French confit pot. Were disappointed that they thought it looked a bit of a mess at the stage it was at. But that's fine, early on in the painting, that's fine, because you're not dealing with, the small details. You're not dealing with the little bits that people think makes a painting work. This is the bit that makes a painting work, is that the colours, the values, the chroma and edge handling. This is where the painting happens, really. I'm a little bit behind here on the comments, sorry. The Gale says, Michael Harding and Old Holland are all I ever use. Fantastic paints. Oh. Loaded with pigment. Yes, indeed. Old Holland is really nice. I find it a little bit too stiff, but it is really nice paint though still. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you. Sarah says, Gamblin 1980 transparent white. Sylvie says, I bought flake white as a replacement from lead white. Flake white is lead white. It's the same thing. Sonny says, I'm painting along, racing but fun. Yeah, I mean, it's basically at the beginning, though, we're throwing together shapes. We're trying to nail colors. We're trying to nail values. You know, we're trying to get a form. I'm trying to paint bowls. She says, you can use any down white you want. You do you. I mean, fair enough, you can. I mean, you totally could paint this with titanium. It would just be harder work in the mixes, I think. For me, anyway. And it wouldn't feel as nice under the brush. The Gale says, where do you get lead white in the UK? I did see some on the Supreme Paint website, but I thought it was banned here. Okay. So £46 for 50ml. Yeah, it is. That's Rublev lead white you were looking at, right? That's what I use. And I get it from Supreme Paints. Okay, you didn't hear it from me, but just order it, put it in your basket, order it, and they will send it to you. Let's paint this. Let's do a bit more on this flower. Let me just handle this edge a little bit first. I just want to soften this. I feel like this is not really feeling soft enough at the moment. Yeah, no, that's all right. Soft edges for cast shadows, remember. It's kind of it's a balance you need to find. Like, you want a soft edge, but you want the shape still to be strong enough for it to work as a shadow. So I'm going to bring in a little bit slightly lighter value just here, because the light is going to come down here and hit the cloth and make the shadow there. So it looks like just a state, right? But there is, if you squint right down, there is a feeling of light and shadow coming in there. And that's what I'm looking for, is that feeling of light and shadow. I'm not bothered about whether anything looks like a flower. I don't care whether this looks like actually looks like silver or not. I'm not bothered about any of that at the moment. All I want is light and shadow and depth. Let's play with this fried egg. Yes, so it is really expensive, no doubt. 50 quid for one of these. I go through a lot of them. And the problem is with expensive paint is you're inclined not to use as much, which again is difficult, because then you can't get some of the effects that you want to get with paint unless you paint thickly enough with it. So you know, that's the next challenge once you've bought that expensive paint, is not being shy with it. All right then. Fried egg. I'm going to start to carve out. What I'll do, maybe, I'll carve out the outside of it a little bit. Where's my smaller? No, I want a smaller synthetic. I want it to be quite hard still, and a flat. What's this? Da Vinci. I don't like Da Vinci brushes. Look at that. That's not even a flat anymore. It's a splayed. I really don't like Da Vinci brushes. I think they're horrible. There, I said it. Your mileage may vary. You might like them. All right then. I'm going to save that one. Oh, where's my favourite flats? We'll just use one we've already got out, I guess. It's a bit too big, but I want to see if I can start to carve out some kind of little... Actually, we'll paint it in first. So around the outside of the bowl here, you know, it opens out and there's a petal that's slightly in shadow, you know. So if I wanted to paint something like that in a situation like this, the first thing I would do, I'll attempt anyway, is to paint the petal, make sure that I get the colour in about the right place. Oh, I've got to take some of that black off first. Look, Sarah, I'm using your little Q-tips here. Coming very useful. Too much black on there. Let's get rid of some of that black. Painting that kind of shadow side of that petal. So all I'm worried about is the left side matching up. I'm not worried about the right at all. I just want it to be bigger than it needs to be. And then I'll cut into it with the background. Making some simple shapes. Right. And then around the edge of it is a lighter area. I need to mix some more of my light color because I'm running out. Small thin round. Pick up some lead white. And this is why I like lead white. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can zoom in, but there's a bit of it actually hanging off the end of the brush. That doesn't happen with titanium. And then it's called ropes, and I can lay that down just to make that little highlight on the outside of that petal. So if I just tried to paint that petal, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. Look at that. Now there's a rope. That's a rope. Look at that. So, let's see if I can get that onto the painting before it drops off the end of the brush. I want it to go around here, look. Get it on the surface of the painting. Go on. It's the end, and then, no, it won't stick. Come on. Come on, you can do it. There we go. And then just lay it around the outside of that petal. And that doesn't have to be it, once it's in there. So ideally I would want like a hard edge on the outside and a softer edge on the inside. So if I'm very careful with my brush, I can soften just one side of that rope and keep a hard edge on the outside and make a softer edge on the inside. Lost a little bit too much chroma in shadow. There we go. An extra little petal off on the side. Let's just start painting these in now. So light here. Into shadow. Soften. And it actually does seem to take on some of the black, so I'm going to work it into the background there and get lower chroma as we disappear off into the shadow. Really nice. Then round here, I've lost a bit of chroma, so let's bit of orange, bit of yellow, some chroma back in my light color. Let's start to make some petal shapes here. Come around the side, harder edge. The other thing I like lead white for is being able to build it up really thickly where I want it. Like I want a petal here over the yolk. I want it to come out of shadow. So let's paint we'll start it off back here with a little bit of shadow color. And then I'll see if I can drag it back. This is this brush is pretty heavily loaded. I know about where I want it to be, so I'll put the brush down, press it in a little bit to get that to take. Will it take? Come on. And then lift it off and it will drift back into the shadow. work a little bit more shadow in around here. So I'm not necessarily looking for something that is a perfect replication of what's in the reference photo. I'm more kind of taking cues from it and then trying to build in shapes that will work as petals. And then back here we've got some shadow. A little bit too dark maybe. Make that into a petal shape. Make one here. Bit of shadow around here. And then there's a lot of light, like petals that curl over here towards the light. So let's get those in. So I'm working over the fried egg. I'm working over the yolk of the egg. Load up the brush. So I'm trying to load it more on the top end, because then when I turn it, I should be able, got a bit too much on there. I should be able to make a nice big light petal shape here. Go on, take. Try and do it in a single stroke if I can. Another one underneath. Ah, that one didn't really take. Didn't have enough paint on it. You've got to really chuck the paint on to get it to cover opaquely to work like this. Oh, got an extra little rope I didn't want. They gradually turn into shadow. So I'm not really looking for petals exactly. I'm looking for light and shadow shapes where I can work them in. And gradually, bit by bit, if I'm careful and if I can simplify it well enough and not mess things up, we should end up with something that bit by bit gradually becomes a rose. You start to read things as petals without actually having to paint every individual little petal. And now actually having that really high chroma fried egg yolk in there, as I'm gradually covering it, it's starting to look really beautiful. Kind of behind these lower chroma light shapes. Show an edge of a petal here just by using the edge of the brush. There's a few of those I can put in actually. These are, I'm just dabbing the brush down using the flat of the brush to make the edges of those petals. Just suggesting, bring a little bit more shadow in around here, and we can get a hard edge on these petals then. Bit by bit, tease it out. Now I've got more chroma on the inside of my rose than is actually there in the painting, which I think at this point, I think I would leave it because I think it's so, it just works really nicely in the painting. I'm going to soften this. See this edge? That's a little bit hard there because everything on this side is in shadow. So let's soften that a little bit. So a lot of it is brush technique. Once you've got those basic colors down, a lot of it is brush technique. And this can absolutely be learned. It can absolutely be taught. I think I need to refine the way that I teach this a little bit, but it would basically be, you would need like just a couple of exercises to follow to enable you to kind of develop this way of using the brush to describe the form, letting the brush speak. Soften some edges, like we're off into shadow there, so this petal needs to come into shadow. So I think a good way to do it would be to get some simplified petal forms and then to paint them not actually in a painting, you know, and then apply those same forms to a painting so that you could see like how being able to use the brush can create such a strong impression. Hello, Thomas. Good to see you. Getting soaked by the grandkids, huh? Jan says, once a year Vasari has their flake white on discounted sale. They ship internationally. What? 150ml tube at a great price. I like the sound of that. So see how this flower is coming out now, but also it was a fried egg. It was a bowl with a yolk in it, with a fried egg yolk in it, right? That's what it was. Yes, I could push that chroma down a little bit, but I would rather keep it. Notice my edges around the outside of the rose are generally a lot softer than they are in the reference photo to really push those back into shadow. But that also means these hard edges here, these little ropes that I put on, are much stronger. You know, they work much more strongly. You feel those edges more. See, I think just a little bit of shadow here. Yeah, to push this petal back into shadow. It's not about the amount of detail you put in or the number of strokes. You want to paint the minimum amount of strokes you can to make something work, to make it live. And a lot of the time, you want to paint with way thicker paint than you think. Right? I'm going to try and make a hard edge. See, I need a hard edge because this is the light, okay? So I'm going to load up this brush with paint. So most of the paint is on this corner. And let's try and get a hard edge in around here. This is just white I'm going in with. I can always knock it back if it's too much. That's it. That's it. It's too strong. I'll knock it back a little bit on the inside. Shadow here. You know, and then you've got to leave it alone. You've got to leave it alone because the temptation is to just keep on going. Like, ooh, that bit worked really nicely. I could do another bit. I'll do a little bit more shadow here, a little bit more shadow there. But you've got to be really careful. Like what I'm doing at the moment is the sergeant dance. So I'm doing a very small area and then I'm immediately stepping right back and squinting to see if I can feel the form, if it feels like the form is coming. That's how I'm making decisions about what changes I make. Not by looking at it and trying to paint a petal. I'm not doing that. Okay. I'm not even sure this painting needs that much more work. Let's do it. I think that flower's fine. Right, Sally says, I just saw, funny enough, mentioning Sargent, I just saw John Singer Sargent at the Met. And he used the little ropes a lot for his lace work and his paintings. Yeah. Another one to look at for that is the absolute master of it. Probably the first person to do it, as far as I know, is Velázquez, or Velázquez, if you're pronouncing it correctly. If you look at his paintings of What was it, the prince that he painted all the time when he was a court painter? I forget his name. Charlie? Prince, I don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, he's got this brocade top on. And the paint is so thick, it's like he's sculpted the brocade. Astonishing. So Chris says, Old Holland Kremnitz, yes, is lead carbonate. Yeah, that is lead white. The only thing you'll find with it, I like that paint. The only thing you'll find with it is Kremnitz generally has less oil in it. That's the only thing. I like the painting more than the photo at the moment. But the painting definitely needs a little bit more. We'll keep going, right? Should we keep going? Thank you, Kathy. Yes, so minimum number of strokes that was to make that. I'm always thinking minimum number of strokes. You see, I think I could take you through painting arrows like this. You know, painting, like making individual petal shapes with these brushes. I think I could show you how to do it. I think I could teach that. At least, you know, open your mind to the possibilities of using paint in a different way than you might normally use it. Like, you know, if you've got difficult stuff to paint like this, the temptation is to get the little brush out and to paint it really thinly. But this is almost like sculpting the petals with paint. And it just works. It does work. Yes, it does take practice, obviously. But I'm thinking that it would be good to be teaching this. And I think if you had like an exercise, like imagine like a series of paintings like this, smallish, no bigger than 8 by 10, single session paintings that would take maybe 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours each. But before you came to paint them, you had a practice exercise. Where you could practice making the petal shapes, sculpting the light and the shadow out of the paint. I think you could learn this. I think it can be taught. So this is not the reference photo. It's something. It's based on it, obviously. But it's a little bit, it's something else, you know. That's such a good question. I mean, the Great Trumpet says, why is it so atmospheric? It's partly the shot. It's partly the reference photo. The way the reference photo was shot earlier on today, actually, on my still life stand. The way the light and the shadow is controlled, you know, to make what I hope it anyway is a beautiful setup. And then it's about nailing the colours, which we did at the start. Simplifying the form, the bowls. You know, these flowers are still bowls with just a couple of colour notes around the outside. They haven't had the treatment yet. David, thank you. It was King, wasn't it? King Philip IV. Thank you, David. Yeah, so there's a painting in the National Gallery in London, life-size, of this guy, presumably King Philip IV, or Prince Philip IV, whatever he was. The Habsburgs, right, with the huge jaws. And it's worth looking at. You stand really close. This was a massive lesson for me earlier on when I started teaching myself to paint. I lived in London, so I used to go to the National Gallery quite a lot. And this particular painting, if you stand really close to it, it just becomes abstract. A mess, in fact. And then you gradually stand back, and the whole thing goes, and then it just becomes brocade. on a waistcoat, and it is just incredible. I mean, that he has to have been, I mean, for me, if we're talking about painters who can manage, like Sargent, manage that kind of paintings that hang somewhere between the abstract and the real, you know, of it being just applied paint when you look closely at it, and then when you stand back, it becoming something incredibly beautiful with depth and life. Velázquez was the master, absolute master for me of that. You can learn so much just by looking at his paintings, but you have to see them in the flesh, that's the thing. Should we do a little bit more? We'll do the treatment on this one, perhaps. I don't want to do as much because this rose is in a nice place and I want it to stay there. So a little bit like, I'm thinking like a little bit like the first Mastering the Magic was. So I was asking the other day, like, I'm planning a flower painting workshop anyway, to start pretty soon, as we come to the end of Mastering the Magic 2, or more Mastering the Magic, as I ended up calling it. And everybody said, so I asked, I think it was on a live stream actually, I asked, like, would you rather paint a series of small paintings where you get to try out like different kind of things, or would you rather paint, you know, like say 3 subjects and spend more time with them? And the overwhelming vote was for a series of small paintings. Right, so let's start to sculpt this. I'll use the background to sculpt this petal. Get the hard edge where I want it. Just black, just black. So I'm going to make a hard edge on the outside, help it stand out from the shadow there, you know, and immediately it starts to look more like a petal, right? And then here in the light, we'll leave it hard edged. Here in the shadow, we'll just, a couple of strokes, we'll just soften it into the shadow. And then it'll start to have a little bit more, form, a little bit more, like feel like it's physically there. I'm going to change this a little bit, shape. A lot of paint on the brush. And then it actually does get a little bit lighter under here just as it comes out into the light. So yeah, at the moment, like in the current workshop, I've been making drawing out videos and mixing videos before the actual live painting session. So that's too, actually, no. You can see how the value is too light there and it's competing immediately with that flower. I have to bring it down. That's better. So here we're going out into shadow. This whole side of this flower here is out into shadow, so we soften this edge. Perhaps it start to disappear. And then with black, cut into it to make the form. What was I saying? Yeah, so on the current workshop, I've been doing drawing out videos and mixing videos, which means you start the session painting with the colors mixed, you know, so a lot of the drawing out done. So a lot of the groundwork is laid, and you basically, in the session, it's about, value needs to come down here, but under chroma. It's about placing the paint. Here into shadow. So there are some definite brush skills involved that I think could probably be taught. Now, obviously, some people will be able to pick it up more quickly depending on what stage of painting you're at, you know. So I couldn't guarantee that, you know, a complete beginner would be able to come in and just do it like straight away, but I could show you what's involved, even for someone who was beginning could, and potentially avoid that trap earlier on of little fine brushes and trying to paint all the detail. So look, I need a petal here, right? So I need some shadow behind it. So I'm going to pull this shadow over first, all around here. And then I'm going to put the petal over it with the light paint. But it needs to be, I don't even have enough white out. It needs to be, the brush needs to be loaded. So whilst I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the specific techniques that I'm using to create the feeling of light and shadow. A lot of it is about how you use the brush to create hard edges and soft edges. So now I want, that's going to be too light. I want thick paint, but it needs to be down the value range a little bit. And let's try and make this shape here. Put just that little bit up in value again. It's not actually bothering me too much. So like the same thing here. I want a petal here, light against shadow. So if I put the shadow in first, it's very subtle, so it's quite a light shadow. But if I make this area shadow, and then I put the light petal over it, and that into shadow there. You kind of get that impression of something laying over something else. So, you know, with a series of small still lines like this, maybe less. I mean, this has 3 flowers in it, so maybe it's a little bit on the complex side. But something like this, I'm thinking would be a fun workshop. I'm just thinking about how I could best put together some practice exercises that would show you, that would help you evolve this kind of, get some real chrome. The feel of the brush. So, makes these marks. Need to give it some thought. I need to try some things out. You know what would be really good? Anybody who's watching this who has my email address, if you would like to help me evolve some practice exercises, it wouldn't be, you know, really time consuming. Just maybe if I can put together some ideas and you could try them and let me know how you found it. And then I could put together a workshop based on that, with also having already kind of tested out some of the ideas of how I would. See, all I'm doing here is adding a hard edge here. That's all, literally all I'm doing. And it makes it feel like form, you know. Yeah, so if you're watching and you might be interested in helping me evolve some practice exercises for this, drop me an email. We just need a couple of leaves now, I think, really, and that's it. I really like it this loose. I like this loose, like that. I like all of that. green gold, cad yellow. Immediately went to yellow. So I'm bringing the value up with yellow because I don't want to lose the chroma, which white would lose the chroma. And it immediately went to yellow. But let's try it with white. So green gold, lead white. Still lost too much chroma, it's gone to yellow. So I'm going to add some phthalo. I wondered if I might get away without using the phthalo in this painting because, you know, it's a dangerous color to get out because it goes everywhere. Goes everywhere. This is Winsor & Newton, Windsor Green. Leaf, I'm onto leaves now. I just want to put a couple in. I don't think it needs much. I don't want to put all the leaves in that we've got there. Oh, too much. Look at that. Green gold, a little bit of phthalo, some white. Need a new brush, a leaf brush. The dagger. Out comes the dagger. And we could also play with some specific brushes, different strengths, like from very, very soft to more springy, like the ivory flats. I could give you a nice materials list with some actual brushes to use, like the dagger. Which is really good for stuff like that. You know, really simple. Let's not be overdoing this, just suggestion. Painting into the black, so it's like, because all of the leaves are disappearing into the shadow, so they're mixing with the black, which is what we want, you know, we want it to be subtle. Minimum number of strokes. Sorry, I'm doing all this talking and I'm just, because I'm enjoying myself so much, I'm not keeping up with the comments, but I will very shortly. We probably could do with a shadow color for the leaves. Phthalo green, raw umber. A little bit of green gold. Just a kind of suggestion of some shadow color of leaves, and then they can just appear out of the shadow. I think we're done. Jan says, remember he used green, gold and transparent red oxide in the transition area between the table and the background. Yeah, all of this. That's a lot of green, gold and transparent red oxide on a big old brush. Not really mixed that carefully, just kind of thrown together and then painted in, like, you know. The question is, do we paint the highlight on the silver bars? I think we try. I think we have a go and we see if we like it or not. So lead white. Because you can't really see what it is anyway. But does it matter? Put it down. Soften it. Drag it out around the edges. Oh, nice opportunity here for soft and hard edges. So I'll soften the edges of the silver there, and then let me get some green up on the palette knife. Oh, I've got white mixed in with it. That's not good. Need to mix up some more. What did I say? little bit of phthalo green, white, and green gold. So there's a leaf coming across the top of that highlight there. So let's soften the highlight. Better get a fresh brush. And then I'm going to bring, actually let's just try pulling that down. Yeah. Then I'm going to bring a leaf in, lots of thick paint on one side of the knife, so it's on the left-hand side of the knife. See if I can bring a leaf shape with a hard edge over that highlight. Now obviously the shape isn't right, but all I was focused on is this edge here. So now I can push the rest of that leaf back into shadow with the brush. And just keep that hard edge at the top there, where it comes over. Nice, huh? Back into shadow. Kathy, I knew you'd be getting in touch. I knew you would. Thank you, Alan. The roses are so beautifully floppy. Yeah. But the colour is pretty close, right? I mean, if you squint down, the colour is fairly close. I've made this lower chroma more cooler, which I like in this painting because it brings the chroma out in here a little bit more. I mean, from a point of view of the overall design and colour scheme, I like that really strong black there. Really helps the flowers stand out. Thank you, matey. Diane says, is there a reflection in the jug of the second rose, or is it an outside petal? Oh, do you mean here? Oh, there is, yeah. Yeah, there is, yeah. Do you think we should put it in? Of course we should. Of course we should. Diane, just for you. So what colour is it? Well, it's a lot darker than you think. Reflections are always darker than you think. Probably no more than a value 5. Just went outside of it, really. Ah, it's too light. Yeah, it went a bit too light. But let's get the shadow in. Let's see. I think a lot of it might be that the value around it should be darker. Where's my big angled brush gone? I lost it. Oh, it's on the floor. It's not that obvious, that reflection, is it? I confess I completely missed that it was there. And a big part of what shows it is difference in chroma, so it's kind of a black. And the silver there against a warm reflection. Just trying to get the value right of the silver in this bit here. There we go. And it is like I haven't had to paint any of the form of the jug at all, really. It's just suggested. Possibly my favourite painting that I've done in a long time, apart from maybe the nasturtiums from last week. Who knows? Okay, it says, I've fallen out with phthalocyanine green. Used it a bit in my darkest shadows when painting trees around a lake. Pulled a bit of the shadow down for reflections, nice, and then stroked a lighter colour over the water for more reflections. The phthalocyanine re-emerged like the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah, when you bring up the value of phthalo, it's intense. It's just, you've got to be really careful with that paint. You really do. Really, really careful. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the session today. I have absolutely loved painting these roses for you. For anyone who is painting along, I hope it was fun and enjoyable. And I've also given myself some ideas. Thinking about incredibly economical painting, brush techniques with the right colours, which you can get with Chroma Magic and the trusty value scale. And then it all becomes about the paint handling, really. And for flowers especially, it's not so much about how much you paint, about making all of those petals look exactly the same as the reference photo. It's about creating the impression of light and shadow and having that work. I like the fact that my rose here is like a little sun. It's like it's got a little sun inside. A little crack in all the darkness, a little crack of light, and maybe there's some hope. Maybe we'll get through this horrendous period that we're living through at the moment, and perhaps things will improve. I've really, really enjoyed painting for you today. I hope you enjoyed the session too. I'll see you again next Friday for another one. Bye for now.